Hi there everyone, it's Jaakko here. Welcome to this tutorial on how to make custom-made graphs and substances in Designer, and then how to apply them in Substance Painter, and the power what comes by doing some exposed parameters and then using those parameters in Painter. Also, we can use the instances here in Designer, so we can make basically one graph and then apply that graph to another graph. So that's kind of a really powerful things, and I'd like to show you guys how we can do that. So let's go to Substance Painter and let's open up some model what we can deal with. So I actually made this special just a moment, I'm going to find that. So I made actually this material previewer model, and I'm going to link to that in the description so you can get this for free. So we have this, I think we have this material previewer frozen. So this is a subdivided basic geometry with some UV maps. So I'm just going to do that so we can get the model here, so we can kind of apply. So this is the model, and I'm going to actually go and bake some maps. So when you are doing stuff in Substance Painter, we can actually get in here and let's say bake textures. So we can bake some maps which we can use, and we can use those maps to drive some edge wear effects and things like that. So I'm just gonna go, maybe we don't need normal, so we have this use low poly mesh as a high poly mesh. So what this allows us to do is to sort of bake the maps pretending that we have high poly model. So in this case we just have this, we don't have any high poly or low poly, so we have just one model. So by clicking this, that allows us to do that, and we have this word space normal, which is really useful for driving some effects, and also a position map which allows us to basically tell the Substance Painter that which way is up and which way is down and so on. So this is really useful if we want to make some leak effects, for example, and things like that. So I'm gonna basically just bake these so we can see what we can come up with like that. So it's really it's so sort of interesting that these days we have so many options to do this stuff. So we could bake these maps, for example, in Blender or using XNormal or Substance Designer or Substance Painter, and also Marmoset, the new Marmoset toolpack, which is a really interesting because it allows us also to bake some maps. So it's so interesting that nowadays we have just so many options. So we have now these maps. We have the ambient occlusion map in here. For some reason it doesn't, yeah, we can actually preview that, but it doesn't matter. So we have these curvature and position and thickness and word space normal and things like that. So then when you export your basically your substance, I'm going to get to this in a moment in detail how this whole thing works, but when you have finished your substance and you want to use that in Painter, for example, you should set this so that basically everything works in related to the parent. So what I have done in here is that I have set the output size from here to relative to parent, and then I'm just setting these to 0 and 0. In this way everything keeps work really quickly, and this is basically the proper way to do it. So it looks kind of, well, it's just a 256 by 256 here, so it looks pretty rough, but it works just fine when you, because you can set this parameter in Substance Painter later, so it really doesn't matter. So you can do like that, and then you can just go and publish SPSR file, and if you publish this and you put it into the Substance Painter's this shelf and materials folder, then it's gonna appear there every time when you open Substance Painter. So it's just a very nice way. So I'm just gonna get in here and then apply this material. So we have these layers in here, and we can just maybe make like a new fill layer in here. And then by just coming here, we can select some of these materials what we want to use. So I have a bunch of, I've created this rough cheap wood which I created recently, and also this rusty steel and some tarp materials and things like that. So I'm just gonna click this one so we can get some idea how this looks like. So we have now applied this material in here, and you can see that it looks kind of weird. We have these lines in here, and what this is that this is actually based on the UV scale. So we have this UV scale in here, and what this means is that basically it's tiling like 3 times. So I'm just gonna maybe put it scale 1 in here for, so we have something to work with. But still, you can notice that this goes like really weird. This goes all over the place. It's not this isn't anyhow relative. So what I've done with this substance is that I've exposed some of these inputs in here. So when we go into Designer, we can see we have these inputs in here, and what these are is that these are inputs for these different effects. So I have like edge wear, and I'm controlling, for example, the direction of these leaks by I'm actually using position map in here. So I'm just actually, this is really, so I'm actually putting a switch in here and expose the switch so we can turn these leaks on and off and things like that. So I'm gonna get into that in more depth quickly, so please bear with me. So what I've done is just expose these inputs, and when you're dealing with some of input maps like that, it's important to notice that you should put this format into this output format into 16 bits, because position maps and things like that work way better when they are 16 bits. So that was something that I struggled with, because I was trying to just input like 8-bit image, and it just didn't work at all. So it's important to bear in mind this output format. So you have to, it's kind of troublesome, you have to go in here and set absolute and do like that. So yeah, so in that way I was able to expose these inputs. So when I'm clicking this graph in here, we can see that I have these input images in here. So I have a curvature input, position input, worst space, normal, and AO input, and this allows fully interactive and fully flexible graph to use in substance to use in other apps like Painter. So now when we have these baked maps, I'm just gonna apply them. So we have like a curvature input here, so I'm going to drag this guy in here, and then we have also position. So I'm just gonna drag this position in here, and world space normal, and then our ambient occlusion. So it should be like that. So now I have those. So we have these parameters now. So these are the sliders that I exposed in Substance Designer. So what these really are, it's just they are just different parameters from different effects and some switches that I have created. So now we have fully interactive material. So for example, I can turn the edge rust on if I want, and what this does is that, well, it creates this kind of effect. Excuse me. So then we can adjust the level also, that how much edge rust level edge where we want to apply, and we can try maybe some value like that, and then we can still see that these leaks are going wrong direction. So we can correct that by using this button which I've created, use position maps for leaks, and what this does, now they are going right way. But we can still see we have this kind of like artifact in here. What that is just it's samples of slope blur effect that is just a parameter in Designer, and we can still see a little bit of that, and I just haven't found a way to do it better. Probably there's some easy way we can fix this, because actually the samples amount, the limit was like 64. So well, maybe I could create my own samples, my own slope blur effect, which might be something that I want to look into. But yes, for now this looks way better at least. And I have all kinds of things in here, like crunch effects and some scratches that are applied to the surface. You can see some of them there. There's also scratchy scale, so we can adjust that scale. And then of course, well, I have a bunch of different effects. We have triplanar in here, and what this triplanar is that it projects basically this in 3 planes. So it doesn't do it on the UV, but it does in sort of a object space, if that makes any sense. I'm just gonna use triplanar and turn it on. So now this sort of changes that, and now it's just, we don't get any UV seams. So if you are struggling with having some UV seams, the triplanar is sort of a solution for that. So if I'm just going to turn that off, so we can probably see that there's some seams somewhere well, I'm sort of I unwrapped this object so that we can't quite see the symbol. There's a 1 in here, so if I'm just gonna turn that on, it's gonna disappear. So yeah, I'm just gonna turn it off and turn it on, so we can see that now we don't have any symbol. This is really nice way. So you can actually if you have some simple materials that don't have, because actually this triplanar effect is built into the graph. I actually built that into the graph, so we don't need to use the triplanar in here, because also you can do it, you can project triplanarly any material here in Painter. So it's a sort of really good that you have just so many ways. But I wanted to build this triplanar effect into the materials, so we have a little bit more freedom to control. For example, I can control the tiling in here if we want to sort of if the model is big or small or something like that, and I want to have a different effect, I can just control the tiling excuse me, which comes from the triplanar. So yeah, I think this is pretty useful. So I'm gonna be able to come up with different kind of effects. And also I have this rust in occluded. So what this does is that it puts the rust in occluded areas which are it's actually coming from the ambient occlusion map, which we just baked. So yeah, we can also do things like that. Also we have paint toggle, so we can turn the paint on or off, because we assume this is a metal. So now we are just exposing the rough metal surface. So I'm just going to turn this metal color to something more like metallic, so something like that. So now we can see we have this nice metallic layer, and we can also change the paint color. In this case I'm just calling it surface color, because the paint isn't really defined, so this is also controlling the metal color. So it doesn't make any sense if it's red metal, but yeah. So yeah, it's pretty useful. And I also have like two different types. So I have like two rust types. So I have like rust type 1 and 2 in here, and this just gives us a little bit of a different result. So this rust type 2 is more like this kind of like a unified piece. And then I have this rust bias, and what this allows us to do is to sort of fine-tune the damage. That I think is pretty interesting. We can just like play around and find something that we kind of like. So this is just one of the slider what I created. So yeah, something like that. And yeah, it works pretty well, and it's really quick to create some really unique materials here in Painter by using this. So of course you could do all this stuff here in Painter. You could just like create one material for the rust and one material for the metal, and then use the special like edge wear effects here in Painter and things like that. But I sometimes now find that it's just so quick to do, and it's kind of it sort of changes the workflow when you have interactive material which you have created. So yeah, so here we are in the designer. So at the moment we can't quite see anything because these are all empty. So I'm gonna use these maps which I bake. So I'm just gonna apply these instead, so we're gonna be able to see what we are doing in here. So I'm gonna do like that. So we should be able to get more values in these, so we can see what's going on. So it looks like pretty messy. I should probably clean this up a little bit. I could maybe even optimize it a little bit. So what this is just very simple. It all starts from, I have these rust effects in here. So this is just a bunch of like these BNV spots in here, and then I have the clouds and things like that. And then I'm just using gradient map to give it some basically give it some color. And then just have some transformation to give it a little bit like a scale and again things like that. So we are getting like this kind of result, just blending in some different values, and this is the final rust that I was able to come up with. So again, there's gradient maps in here, turning these black and white procedural effects into color image data. And then what I've done in here again is that, well, these are actually these edge wear effects. So I'm just using this metal edge wear, one of these nodes that comes with designer. I'm just going to drop this guy in here, and then I have this switch, which is just basically a switch which turns this edge wear on and off, and and then I'm just blending it together in here. So I have like this additional damage in here, and it's again the same stuff. So I have like histogram scan in here, and then I've exposed that slider of the position. So by using that, we're going to be able to sample different values from this one. So I don't know if that makes any sense. I can't use that now because I've exposed that, but so basically what this does is that I have this position slider, and I just went in here and exposed that, and if we go in here, we can see that now we have this rust level. I think, sorry, actually it's this slider here. So this is actually the histogram scan, which is just sampling different values from that grayscale image. So that's really easy and quick to do. So then I have, yeah, that was the switch that turned it on and off and so on. And then I have again blend in here. I'm blending some of that looks like ambient occlusion. So I'm just blending some ambient occlusion in here again. And again, I have a switch in here which turns that ambient occlusion effect on and off. So if we want the rust in our occluded areas, that was the switch, if I remember right. So then again is we're just going forward here. I'm just having like another blend in here, which is actually this edge wear, which is now blend into this. And then I'm just starting to build up my color, my diffuse channel in here. So what's here happening, this is actually really easy way. So we have the slope blur grayscale node, and what this allows us to do is that we can get these leaks effects, and we have this mode in here. We can do the blur, which isn't really, it just blurs it like that. Then we have this min, I think it comes from minimum, and then we have this max, which is like the opposite. So yeah, I've just found out that this works really nicely. So I just basically drop this in, and it has two inputs. We have the slope. So what the slope is that we can also do it like that. So we can so in this map, actually how this works is that I have this basically this gradient, and what this is that I'm just taking this position map in here, and then I'm using this node RGBA split. So what this does is that it splits the RGB values of this position map, and we are just sampling actually the green value, which is the Y, the up and down. So in that way we are going to be able to get this map, and what this defines is that which way is up and which way is down. So yeah, basically this is what this does is just everything is, so this is up and this is down, and so on. So yeah, I'm just using a switch in here that if we don't have that map baked and we still want to use these effects, we're going to be able to use this gradient linear instead to drive this effect. So it's something that I came up with, and then we're just using the slope blur grayscale, and we are just using this grayscale gradient as a slope for input and so on. And then when we're just driving this, getting this effect from here, so wherever these rust spots are, then the leaks are going to appear in the correct positions. So yeah, I hope that makes sense. So then I have levels in here. What I did, actually, I inverted that. Just you can invert by dragging these sliders. If you do it like that, you're going to be able to invert. So yeah, I just inverted that, and then did some effects here. I basically used this as a mask for driving this leaks colors. I have like this, so I'm putting the leaks in here, doing that way. And then again, I have another blend in here where I'm blending a little bit more additional sort of detail in these kind of like paint wear effects. And so that's our diffuse, our base color, basically. And then the normal map is nothing really special. It's again the same things. Basically, I'm just getting these values to give us a little bit like height information there. So I'm actually getting this guy, which is coming from the rust, and then I'm using that mask again coming from this. So this is sort of the central command for our rust. So this will really tells us where the rust is, and if we change some of those values, for example using the slider of the histogram scan, then this is going to update and everything's going to update. So So that's how it works. And then the roughness channel is, again, I'm using some scratches in here. So I have some scratch node in here. I'm just dragging this scratches generator here, and I just wanted to sort of add a little bit scratches to the roughness channel, so you don't necessarily need to see these in the base color channel. So these are just gonna affect where it's glossy, where it's rough, and where it's smooth, so on. So again, our effect comes from it. So I'm just taking this, and then I'm making these more rough, so the white is more rough and black is more smooth. So that's the way how the metal roughness anyway works. So if you're using that, and then we have the metallic, and we can, I made this switch actually, which can make everything metallic or not. So so I'm having this guy coming from here, and then I have this plain switch that I can use to switch everything on and off. So yes, basically, so even if we switch off this, anyway, the rust is going to appear non-metallic. So yes, rust, even though rust is an effect that happens on metallic, it's not really, yeah, it's not really considered metal anyway. So I don't know, I hope this makes some sense. Probably I'm gonna get tons of questions from you guys, so please post the questions to the comments, just ask by all means. I'm glad if I can be helpful. But yes, this kind of materials come really useful. So what I'm doing nowadays is that I'm trying to come up with these generators to create some unique service materials. What I'm going to be able to use, like I created this tarp material, this guy, which I'm using to do some synthetic kind of effects. So I what I've actually done here is the same things, that I have like wrinkles effect in here. So we can just probably adjust. So we have this like the cloth type of tarp, like tarp. I don't know how to pronounce tarpaulin. I don't know what language is it coming from. But as you can see, I'm again having these tiling in here, and I can use these to drive some effects. Also have some scratches in here, so to give this sort of like a cloth type of effect. Also I have some dirt, what I've just created. So having this type of materials in your disposal is really nice, and you just have total freedom when you're using Substance Designer to create these, because then you can expose the parameters, you can change anything you want, you can change the color. Like I've just exposed the color, that if I want to create different color of top, I can just do that like that. So yeah, I think this is a pretty nice workflow, and when you get to this, you're just gonna get like super powerful tools in your hands. So if you're working for game industry, if you're just working for a game company to create some materials or things like that, then probably you've heard about Substance. So I think I can really understand why game companies really want to use Substance, why they just embrace this workflow. It's just because it's so powerful, and you're gonna be able to do all kinds of really custom effects really quickly, and everything is procedural, and everything is just independent from resolution. So even in my case, I'm not like having super powerful computers, so I just like to work basically at 2K and then export in 4K. So if you just if you don't have like if you're working with laptop or something like that, or you don't have like tons of video memory, you can just use this as a 2K, and then when you come here and export your textures, you can change that size. So you can change this. You can even like do 8K, which is just amazing. So you're gonna be able to change that later, so you don't need to struggle with trying to paint in 4K. Your computer is gonna, if your computer is struggling with that. So yes, this is it. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial on how to use custom-made substances in Substance Painter. So yes, if you like, please subscribe and leave a comment if you have something you want to add. So it would be nice to hear from you guys anyway. So it was nice to see you guys. I hope to see you soon. This was Jaakko. Bye bye. By the way, there's one more thing that I'd like to add, and that is how you can come up with this kind of crazy gradients, and I'd like to show you that. So I'm just gonna drag some Rust image in here. I'm just having like one of these textures that I grabbed, and I'm just gonna link that. And now we have this bitmap image in here, and we can use this data to quickly come up with some interesting looking gradients. So I'm just gonna come in here, and maybe we can actually clear all, so we're getting this. So how we can do this is really nice. Actually, I'm gonna double click like this first, and I'm gonna maybe I'm gonna double click this one, so we are getting this image in here, and then I'm gonna click this once, so we are gonna be able to do that. I'm gonna come to a gradient editor, and what we have in here is that we have this big gradient, and I can do and sample these values in here and come up with this kind of thing, which already looks like Rust. So it's a really quick way to sort of get this nice organic looking gradient to be used in your maps. So we do not need to use any image data. We are just sampling the values from the image data, and then using that to drive our gradient maps. So it's just a quick tip on how to do that. So hope you enjoyed. See you soon.